No internals. That's our free ALDA delete. The way this thing freaking runs now is like night and day compared to before. Oh, there is some smoke. Awesome. What's up, guys? It's Gary. So in this video, we are going to make a massive improvement of the bottom end off-idle acceleration of this OM617 turbo diesel, and it's going to be completely free. Plus, I'm going to throw a boost gauge in it, and in my typical fashion, I'm just going to do it with parts I have laying around, and yeah, let's get into this thing and have some fun. Oh, and by the way, the last video, the valve adjustment didn't quite go right. A few of the valves were still tight. I went back in there and checked everything, readjusted it. Engine still doesn't run perfect. I think it might need injectors, but what do you do when an engine isn't perfect and still needs work? You just forget about it, and you go right ahead and keep modifying it. So let's go. Let's have some fun with this thing. Okay, anyone can go to the store and buy the correct stuff they need for the job that they're doing. But sometimes you just don't have that stuff, and you want to make something work with what you got, and that's what I love to do. So we'll start with this. This gauge, I bought this for my truck a while back because I wanted something that was just real basic and old school looking that didn't have a vacuum setup on it but only had pressure, so a boost gauge. But I didn't want to buy an expensive boost gauge, and I couldn't find anything that was actually a boost gauge for cheap. So I found this for like, I think I paid like 15 bucks or something like this on eBay. You know, it's actually for probably some sort of machinery controlled air, but it works just like a regular boost gauge. You know, it'll work. And with the truck, especially, the truck only makes maybe 14 psi. So same thing with the Mercedes. It's actually less than that. I think stock might be more like 10 psi. I am going to be putting a boost gauge, boost controller on it, but I'm not sure if it's really going to benefit adding any boost without any more fuel, but eventually I'm going to get into that pump, and you can squeeze a little bit more fuel out of them, but not much. But this is a Turbo XS boost gauge that I bought like over 10 years ago, actually probably like 15 years ago, that I had on my Saab 900 SPG. We're not worrying about that right now. I just want to get the boost gauge on here because I want to actually delete the ALDA, and I want to see if there's any boost response difference. So the ALDA holds fuel back until it sees boost. Well, the way I look at it is if you delete the ALDA, now it'll get more fuel right off the hit, right when you touch the throttle, so it may actually give it more response. It might spool the turbo a little bit quicker. So I want to have a back-to-back. I want to know what it's doing before I delete that. And so comes the search for all the different stuff that I have laying around. What am I going to do? How am I going to connect to that? Well, I don't have the stuff that I need. This doesn't fit it. This actually fits it, but it just brings me right back to where we started. I don't have nylon line or any of the stuff that goes with that. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do, and I already test fit this, it's really tight. This is a vacuum plug that came off of my Miata. I had an extra engine sitting in the back, so I had this on there. Screw this onto here. It's super thick rubber, really fits on there good. I'm going to drill a little hole in this. At first my thought was I was just going to stick the vacuum line right into it, but actually I have one of these. I only have one with a 3. I don't have one with just a 2. I only have a T. So we're just going to put a vacuum plug to block off that. We'll jam that, we'll stick that in there, and then we'll be able to run this vacuum line, which I happen to have. It's super small, so obviously that's kind of the challenge here. That is enough to get me into the car, and how I'm going to actually hook it up on the other end to the car, well, the car has a little like kind of hose that goes between the nylon stiff line, and I think I can maybe stick this into that hose and use a clamp. I don't know if it's going to be the right size, but we're going to find out when we get that far. bigger? Maybe not. Oh, there we go. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So that, and I do believe, so that'll block that guy off. So we'll take this guy, and I thought about drilling this a little bit bigger, but I'd rather it be as frickin' tight as possible, and I already was able to get it on there, so get her on there. And we'll be golden. That should seal. I mean, I guess we'll find out, huh? So this is a vacuum line that's going to be going into the car. I obviously got to figure out where it's going to come in, but I do want to make sure this is going to fit on here. Yeah, I'll definitely be able to get that to go on there. Kind of janky, but hey, it'll work, at least for testing purposes. We'll be able to see where we're at. So on the car, here's the ALDA, which, again, that's just an emissions control device that holds back the fuel rack until it sees boost. It's exactly the same as what's on my truck. On the Caterpillar engines, it's known as the AFRC, Air Fuel Ratio Control. And these things are so mildly fueled that you can delete this and it won't even smoke. At least it shouldn't. There should be like barely any smoke, if anything at all, under no boost condition. So this has these hard nylon lines with banjo fittings. There's a boost reference coming from the manifold right at the back, the same type of nylon line with a banjo fitting on it, and it goes to that guy right there. And then that is the, basically that's, I believe, an overboost protection. And you can see it also has an electronic plug going to it. And then that comes out of that and goes into the ALDA. So it pretty much has to see that there's not overboost condition. You know, make sure that the boost is still within the parameter before it's allowed to go to the ALDA. You know, so what I'm going to do is, in order to connect up to my manifold vacuum, because of course we're just going to be getting rid of this side. We're going to be ditching this, of course. The overboost protection we don't need anymore either. And you can see this just has like a rubber hose clamped on to the nylon hose. So I should be able to take my vacuum hose and just stick it in there and clamp it on and then head on into the car with it. That frickin' valve cover is absolutely beautiful, isn't it? Alright, so this is actually pretty rad. These extra little points here, nothing comes out of them, but you could just poke a hole or drill a hole or whatever, and it's just like soft rubber on the grommet. It's perfect. I can see it up in there too, so it's not going to be hard. I'm just going to stick the vacuum line through that and then we'll just pull it through. Where I'm going to put the gauge in there, I do not know yet. It's going to be more of a temporary thing probably than anything. I may even, for now I don't have a radio, I might just stick it in that radio DIN hole. We'll figure something out. Alright, so I've been looking all over in here trying to figure out my options. One thing to consider with this car is the steering wheel's so big that certain spots, like, you know, putting it down here by the console, I wouldn't be able to see it at all. Same thing on that side. I thought at first, okay, maybe I could just stick it in here, it'd be temporary, because obviously I do want to get a head unit for this thing and do a full stereo setup. I definitely don't want to put it in the vent. It'll probably fit, a proper like boost gauge, like an aftermarket gauge would probably fit in there perfect. This is probably about the same size. Would fit in either one of these vents very nicely, but I don't want to sacrifice the vents. I don't want to sacrifice any functionality. So really, another thing would be like, you know, up here or here would be nice, but there's no way to actually practically mount that without drilling and ruining the car. So I'm figuring I'm going with the old school steering column mount. You know, back in the day, you'd mount like your tack or something on the steering column, and it's very simple. You just have a clamp, like a hose clamp, around the column, and a hose clamp around the gauge, and I don't know how it connects, I forget. But I don't even have a column, I don't even have a hose clamp big enough. So check it out. We're doing just like zip ties. We are going to connect 2 hose clamps together. That'll get us around the column. And oh yeah, that's right. In order to put it on the gauge, typically like an aftermarket gauge would have a little pedestal mount. And that pedestal mount just goes underneath the clamp. You know, picture my thumb as like a flat piece of metal. So I have a piece of metal that I'm going to use to make that work. And then that piece of metal will just, instead of like typically like it bolts to the gauge, it'll just clamp around the gauge. I think that's how I'm going to do it. Once we put it on the car, it's going to be the clamp around the column that we're going to have to tighten. Alright, I don't want to go over tightening this thing because I don't want to affect the gauge in any way. So what I determined is, if you can see, oh wow, you can't, have I been even in the ballpark of the vision of what you're looking at? I don't know if you actually missed anything I just did, but of course, just a flat piece of metal, clamp to the gauge. That's going to go, the steering column clamp is going to clamp that to the steering column. I ended up putting a little plug on the back of this. It'd be really nice if I just had a 90 instead of a T, but that's all I got right now. So that will just barely, you know, clear the back of the dash, and we'll just run the line into here. And the reason, because obviously that's right at the back of the dash, so that's how it's going to be. Get that guy in there. And down into the... All right. Check it out. Not horrible. Like I said, see how that thing is just hitting the dash. If I get the correct stuff to actually connect to the back of the gauge, then we could shove the gauge like way back, like all the way up against the dash there. And I think that would actually be really nice. I think that would be a nice permanent location for it. I'll be able to see it when I'm driving. I got it perfectly centered. It is freaking awesome. Of course, the only complaint is that side looks like crap because of that clamp. Really is visible there too. But the beautiful thing is we have a boost gauge now installed, and there has been no cutting or drilling into the car. It is totally reversible. Just take it off and it's back to stock. Alright, we got the gauge in. The line is all tucked up in there. The lower panel's back on. We need to hook it up. So my plan is to delete the ALDA, but at first I want to monitor the boost response with the ALDA in place, which I have adjusted all the way out. So it's pretty simple routing with the way that it is. It's just the manifold pressure line goes up to this overboost solenoid, and then from there to the ALDA. I already took the screws out, so here's the overboost solenoid, and I unplugged it. It's just got a little 2-wire plug there. The nice thing is it just has these rubber, kind of coupled rubber parts here. So I'll just take the one coming from the manifold off, and I'm just going to tee into that right there. And here's my line right here. So we'll be able to tee right into that, and should give us our boost signal. Alright, well, let's get some heat into this thing. It shouldn't be too long to do that. It's 90 degrees out today. Alright, well, one thing I already have done is it'll it'll make some boost on just holding the revs. And it will actually make about 5 pounds of boost if you just stab it. A bit more than that, actually. So let's see what she'll put out on the road. Wait till I get to the other road. Actually, I should have went the other way so I could have had a more straight shot at getting on it. It's like about, what is that, like 8.5, 8 PSI or so? Fingers steering wheel. Yeah, have to look at the video, but I think that's about 8 PSI or so. The reason I think that boost would be affected by deleting the ALDA is because deleting the ALDA is going to effectively give it full throttle when it's not currently getting full throttle. And that might drive the turbo a little harder. I think it's about 8 PSI. I know you probably can't see it now, but I was able to look at it a little bit better. It's amazing. It's weird. It like holds when it's still up in the revs. It holds a little bit of boost when it's coming down. It's a diesel thing, I guess. Yeah, because you figure it's not like a gas engine where the throttle shuts. It would actually kill the boost. Of course, I have tried power braking it. It doesn't make that much boost power braking it, and right on the dirt it'll just want to spin. I think I got it to like 2.5 PSI power braking. Oh, we got it over 5 PSI in a power brake. She really doesn't want to do a burnout though. Oh, now, I don't know if I had already mentioned it, but I've already adjusted the ALDA all the way out. So it's at its max adjustment capability while still being on there, and there's no smoke whatsoever. And there is a bit of a difference. I definitely noticed a bit of off-idle response improvement, but not a lot. Frankly, I think there was like 1 turn or 1.5 turns maybe before it was fully out. So, and the fact that the cap was removed already, I think somebody's already adjusted it from stock. Alright, this thing is a real pain to get if you don't have the correct wrenches. So, of course, I don't. So it's a 24 millimeter, and the bottom nut that you have to hold on to is a 27 millimeter. Of course, in my usual fashion, I didn't figure any of this out. I just started putting things, wrenches on there and turning. I'm like, what's going on here? I had the thing almost all the way turned out and it wasn't coming off, and that's because the lower portion was coming out of the pump instead of separating the top from it. After a bunch of different wrench attempts, different type of wrenches and vice grips and channel locks, I finally got the combination here, which is this big adjustable on the lower portion, beautifully right up against the shock tower, which helped me a lot because I was trying to grab the two of them and it was not breaking loose. And I'm using a 15/16 on that, which is about 24 millimeters. So I finally just broke it loose. Let's pop it off there and see what we got. Now that makes a lot more sense. It was really tight before because there's a spring down in there and that wasn't coming off. So hopefully I didn't disturb anything down in there. Should be all good. Alright, so I realized I didn't actually explain how we're doing a free ALDA delete here, or what this thing actually is and how it works. So to start with, it's an emissions control or smoke control device. It's on the pump here. It actually is in normal position pushing down on that little metal nub. And when you put the pedal to the floor, you're not getting full fuel until it sees boost, and then inside the diaphragm expands and it lets that little metal nub come back and give you full fuel. Basically, you can buy a delete. You can buy a little metal plug that just screws into here, and it's $35. And you know that's reasonable, but it's literally just a piece of metal with threads on it. So I figure, why should we spend the money to buy this delete when you can just take this and open it up and remove the internals and achieve the same result? And that's what we're gonna do. So let's open this thing up and remove what's inside it, and we'll stick it back on there. Of course, I don't have the frickin' good right size for that. You Alright, I finally found the correct size little Phillips socket, and I got one of them loose, so let's move on to the next one and see if it'll go. Would have been nice if I didn't already somewhat strip these. Luckily that does fit in there quite nice. Fit in there even nicer though if I didn't mess with it and I found this in the first place. Yeah, there we go. If you got two, you probably get the others. Let's go. Yes! See, it's all about having the right tools for the job. Yep! Awesome. And I still don't... Oh, don't move it. No. I still don't even know if what I'm doing is even going to work. Let me just take this guy. Yep. Okey-dokey. This one, yep, just pops off. You can see they're like, I don't know what that is, brass or something. I don't think it's copper because I feel like it would be green if it had corroded and was copper. And the way this works is pretty obvious. Boost comes in here, and this is sort of a wide open spaces, yeah. Wow, that really, it's amazing how that like sticks on there. Fluid dynamics. And so see, when you adjust the ALDA to gain more low-end response, you're basically just taking this whole thing and bringing it further away from the pump, which the pump is, like I said, sprung. That piece is pushing out, and when this goes that way, the pump goes that way, more fuel. So you're sort of just preloading it further. You're making it start at a further position. Now, how much is there left? In other words, when I take this out of here and I have it fully deleted, how much different is that going to be than just having it turned all the way out? That I don't know yet. It almost looks like the size of a... Yeah, maybe, I don't know, it's a weird fine thread. I was going to say, it almost looks like a carb jet or something might fit in there. But of course, the carb jet has a hole in it, so I don't know if that's not going to help us. That's not quite big enough for a rubber plug either. Alright, now we're getting somewhere. I'm doing everything I can to not have to go to the store and buy anything. So, we got the original banjo bolt that actually goes in there. I don't have the perfectly sized crush washer for this. But since I'm using this and it's open on that end, it could use a bigger one anyway. So, here we go. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. And those washers are way too big. That doesn't look good. Yeah, the washers look like crap. So, it's not actually sealing anything. I mean, there will be a little... In that hole, there's oil that can come out, but barely any. It's not like under pressure. It doesn't need to worry about really much, so we'll just do it this way. This is all the seal we need. Just basically need to make sure that there isn't debris getting inside of this. Nicely. That's perfect. Look at that. So that blocks that off. Still have, I haven't found exactly what I can use to block this off. But, again, trying to do everything I can to not go to the parts store. Where, I don't know, I might have a hard time actually finding that anyway. Super fine thread that doesn't want to focus. There you go. Super fine thread. Very specific size. I actually was looking through some carburetor parts because I was hoping like a jet size might fit that. But they're way smaller. I have this bolt here. It's not the correct thread, but it just engages just enough to where I'm confident that's not going to fall out of there. And again, all it really has to do is prevent debris, oil from it has to prevent anything from getting in there and oil from coming out, which isn't, it's not like it's like oil pressure, it's just like kind of residual. So I'm just going to hand tighten that like that, and that's going to block that off for now. And then in the future, if I want, I can just go to the parts store, pop that guy off of there if it hasn't already fallen off. It shouldn't. It feels pretty good. And then replace it with the correct size piece. I mean, I've looked all over here. I don't have anything that fits it properly. Oh, you know what else I just... No. I was just thinking we could just do this. But no, you can't, because then this is going to go way in there. I mean, I guess you could... If you're not worried about the way it looks, I could just put like some washers or a spacer. And then just tighten it like this. Looks kind of silly, but it would work. I don't want to have this just under there exposed, though. I need to keep these so they're still good to put back on. As long as we don't wreck the threads, you know, I'm not going to jam this in there with a tool. I'm just going to, that's it. Just hand tighten. And I really doubt that's going to come off of there. Alright, now I'm just going to put this back together with no internals. That's our free ALDA delete. Alright, so we're all back together. Everything's connected up. So we no longer have that boost reference line, which comes from the manifold and then actually to this overboost. So some of what we did in the beginning of the video, I just actually undid. So now the boost gauge, the only thing coming from that manifold, it's going directly into the boost gauge into the car. The overboost solenoid here is no longer able to be used anyway, because all it did was monitor the boost between the well, basically it monitored boost, and if it determined there was overboost, it would not allow the boost to get to the ALDA and therefore not allow full fuel. So now we have no ALDA, so that's not a thing anymore. So that's disconnected entirely. And we should just have, when you put the pedal down, you got whatever the pump can give. Now there are other adjustments in this pump, but they are extremely difficult to get to, and I do plan on messing with them in the future. You have to remove the oil filter housing. Not to mention I want to retime it and make sure it's all good, because with a little tiny bit of timing chain stretch that it does have, you can't really do anything about that with an offset key. And I've heard a lot of horror stories about replacing the timing chains in these, and the timing chains you can get now are not as good as the original. So a 3-degree stretch on the original is acceptable. All we really have to do is go and re-time the pump to make up for that 3 degrees, plus a little bit on top of that, because we're hot rodding this thing. So stock timing is about 24 degrees plus or minus 1, and 26 degrees is the hot ticket for performance, along with adjusting the pump. So you basically, one goes with the other. Am I bleeding? No, that's just some weird way it looks on camera. So there's, high RPM governor adjustments, full load fuel adjustments, stuff like that, but it's very difficult to get to, so right now we're not messing with that. Let's see if it has any more. It should definitely have some more bottom end response, and I am, I'm hoping it has a little bit quicker spool, because if it's got more fuel off the bottom, right off idle, it might drive the turbo a little harder. But I'm not expecting too much of a difference with the spool. More or less, it should just be a noticeable seat of the pants feeling of if it has a little bit more torque right off the bottom. And another thing to consider is it's making 8.5 psi a boost, but there's no smoke under load. So I do want to mess with this boost controller and try to get maybe up to 10 psi, but to be honest, I don't know if it's even worth it, because since there's no smoke out of the tailpipe when you're ripping on it, it really probably would not be a benefit to add any more boost. It's just going to overheat. It's just going to be a heat soak situation with no intercooler. So the right way to do it is we need to get an intercooler on this thing, then adjust the pump to get more fuel out of it, and then go to the turbo and try to get more boost to make up for the extra fuel. There's only so much fuel that these stock pumps can put out. It has a 5.5 millimeter element in there, and there's really, that's your limitation. So you can go to a bigger element pump, like a 7.5 mil pump, and that's where you can get her up to about 180 to 200 horsepower with the right turbo to match. So let's take this thing for a drive and see how it is. All right, first things first, we need some ventilation in here. All right. All right, well, I stabbed the throttle full to the floor on a free rev. Still no smoke. No smoke whatsoever, which is a little surprising. I definitely have seen some videos of people deleting the ALDA, and when they lay into it real hard on a free rev, or even when you look into deleting the ALDA, or adjusting the ALDA, it'll say adjust it out until you get some smoke on free revving throttle. No smoke. So but again, it runs hard on the street. It's got power. So my first instinct would go, well, maybe it's not getting all the fuel it needs. Maybe that diesel purge will clean everything out. Maybe the injectors are clogged up. But it feels strong. It feels more powerful than I would expect it to feel when I rip on it on the street or floor it on the street. So I don't know. Maybe it'll smoke a tiny bit under full throttle load. Not that I'm looking to just roll a bunch of coal. I'm just saying I'm surprised that it's not at just stomping it to the floor free rev, it doesn't smoke still with that deleted. So yeah, we'll take it up the road and see how it is. All right, so I take that back. There might be a little bit of smoke on free rev. hard to say. I mean, I can see it, but you can't see it. This boost gauge makes noise too. Again, I'm kind of looking for boost response. Let's see if it's any different. Oh yeah, she's definitely got more you know, power right off the throttle there. No doubt. So I'm just gonna go straight this time so we can look at the boost response here. About the same. Alright, so I admit this is not a truly accurate side-by-side comparison, but I actually do think it does spool a little bit quicker, and regardless of it spooling quicker, the seat of the pants feeling of pressing the throttle and actually getting fuel from the pump is a huge difference. So let's continue. But I tell you what, you know what, actually, transient throttle, it might be a little better because it feels, I feel the delete. You know, I feel immediate response when I hit the throttle now. I don't know if it was that quick before to respond. So like, basically just going along, whatever RPM this is, I'm locked into third. Okay. Too bad we don't have an RPM gauge, but a tacho. But see, if no boost, I'm just gonna lay into it in third. Pretty decent boost threshold there. We're up to 80 now. Go ahead and do it again. I'm just gonna basically just stab it right now in third. Yeah. I mean, it immediately responds now. Before I could, I mean, maybe the boost itself is still lagging the same amount, but the feeling, the seat of the pants feeling, is that it pulls, you know, it responds. Like, you can feel that you're requesting fuel and it's giving it to you. Versus before, the way it pulled was more of an exaggerated laggy feeling. Like, you know, like it felt like it had more turbo lag than it actually had. Because the fuel wasn't there until the boost was there. It feels great, actually. I'm really happy with that. Oh yeah, she freaking, it's like a whole new animal now. I can't believe it. I mean, the funny thing is, it still has the same overall, like, power, right? It still has the same top-end power, mid-range power even. But the way that it takes off now from a stop is just night and day compared to before. The way this thing freaking runs now is like night and day compared to before. I actually am really happy with that. No doubt, deleting the ALDA is the way to go. I mean, again, it's just an emission smoke control device, and it's hard to tell from in here looking back, but I don't see any smoke. So it's like a win-win. If you're looking to do this and you're not wanting to smoke anybody out, there's no smoke. Maybe this car isn't smoking for other reasons, but there's not like a black cloud of smoke back there. Now, I actually personally want there to be a black cloud of smoke back there a little bit, at least before the boost comes on. But either way, this thing is very different than it was before. I'm just going to, when I get up here, I'm going to actually do a kick down downshift and see how that feels. Oh, we got a deer checking out the road. A little tiny deer too. So if I'm just cruising at 30, 35 miles an hour. She's a ripper. And of course, when I get up in those RPMs, it's not going to be any different than it was before. It's just as good. But it's still, you just still have to do it. It feels right. So actually, I'm going to stop. I'm going to see if it spools the turbo any harder on on a power brake. Not really. It kind of seems like it's got a little bit more power, but it still doesn't feel like it wants to do a burnout. And I don't see any smoke. Let's see. Oh, there is some smoke. Awesome. A little bit of haze back there. Let's see. Oh yeah, she's freaking so much better than she was. She's running pretty good. And when it's warmed up, it doesn't smoke like white smoke nearly as bad. Alright guys, well that was definitely a little bit more satisfactory episode for me, because I actually got something accomplished that made a difference, and it was fun. Got a boost gauge in there so we can see what's going on there, and that'll be good for future upgrades, putting the boost controller on there and maybe messing with the pump a little bit more. And the ALDA delete was honestly a little bit even better than I thought it was going to be. I thought, because I turned it out all the way and it made a little bit of a difference. I was like, yeah, how much more difference could there be removing it? No, it made a big difference. It's hard to, you can't see it on video, of course, but it's all about the seat of the pants, like what it feels like for me driving. The way it was, especially when I got it, before I actually adjusted the ALDA, you know, you'd lay into the throttle and it was real dead off idle. Like you're giving it full throttle and it's just sort of like, it doesn't want to go. And then all of a sudden, as if there was that much turbo lag, you literally would feel it. You would literally feel it like hunker down and start pulling. Start going a lot quicker, you know, pulling and having power. And now, the second you hit that throttle, you like the back squats, and it's just a whole different animal now. It feels great. Definitely a little tiny bit of smoke, a little tiny bit of black haze, and it's perfect. That's what you want. I mean, I would like it a little bit more. I want a fully built pump and a big turbo, and the option to turn it to the point where it just like rolls coal right off the hit and then clears up under boost. But that's a lot more down the road, a lot more money into it, and I think I can tweak the pump a little bit to get a little bit more power out of it. I mean, that's the word on the street, as they say. I had to make sure we were still recording. But anyway, hopefully you guys watch this, because I know that so far the last one was a bit long, I get it, and it's kind of a failure, to be honest. That stupid freaking adjustment of the valves, which I didn't even show you me actually adjusting the valves, and then I failed at adjusting them. Whatever. That's all right. I'm just doing what I love. I love this car. I love working on this car. Sometimes, you know, sometimes I just don't like working on cars, but if I really like a car, like, you know, cars like this, classic cars, special cars like this, I just love getting in there and figuring out how it all works and tweaking it and making it better and making it look better. Like in the last episode, polishing up the valve cover and repainting the air cleaner. That I just love. I love the difference that makes. But anyway, if you guys like what you see, go ahead and subscribe, like, comment down below. Whoever is subscribed, I thank you. I appreciate it. You're always there. You're always commenting. So I do appreciate you guys watching who are there pretty much every weekend. And yeah, don't know what's next. I definitely want to get back to some tractor build stuff. I actually I do want to put a different transaxle on my hot rod tractor over there and see what I could do with that a little bit. Have a little bit of fun with that. Gonna do some more on the Camaro soon. I put a set of mufflers on there that I'm gonna have a video, but I have other things that I want to do to it before it's actually a video. So mess with the timing or something like that. You know, want to get it like a little bit more dialed in, even though it has no floor. And I want to take it up the road again and see if I can actually get full throttle out of it. But again, here I go. I just ramble on and on. I'll say it again. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.